Some of the most important American dishes never took center stage. They sat quietly on the side of the plate, prepared from habit, memory, and necessity. These were not restaurant creations or festive showpieces. They were dependable lunch companions found only in the pages of old cookbooks, written for cooks who measured value in nourishment, not novelty. In this video, you will uncover 10 forgotten American side dishes that once defined everyday lunches in the early 20th century. Each recipe tells a story of thrift, routine, and survival. If these dishes are forgotten, an entire way of eating disappears with them. Lunch in early 20th century America was rarely flashy. It was practical, measured, and deliberate. One side dish that perfectly embodied this ethos was scalloped corn, a recipe that filled plates from farmhouses to small-town boarding houses. At a time when meals were expected to sustain long workdays and little food was wasted, scalloped corn offered warmth, substance, and simplicity, all in one modest dish. Scalloped corn began with ingredients that were accessible to nearly every household. Fresh or canned corn was layered with milk, a bit of butter, and sometimes a handful of crushed crackers or stale breadcrumbs. Some variations added an egg to bind the mixture, creating a custard-like texture that held its shape once baked. The dish was placed in a shallow pan and baked slowly, allowing the top to brown lightly while the interior remained creamy. It required no elaborate techniques, only patience and care. The value of scalloped corn extended beyond flavor. Corn was affordable and plentiful, making it a practical choice for families striving to feed everyone without extravagance. The dish also solved the common problem of stretching limited ingredients into something filling. Leftover crackers or stale bread, extra milk, and surplus corn all found new purpose in this simple casserole. It was dependable, nourishing, and unpretentious, exactly what a midday meal demanded. Cookbooks of the era included scalloped corn in sections devoted to everyday lunches, assuming readers understood its role without explanation. It was not a celebratory dish, yet it mattered deeply. It reflected a time when side dishes were as essential as the main course, quietly sustaining generations. As American kitchens modernized and lunch became faster and simpler, scalloped corn slowly vanished. Yet remembering it reveals how lunches were once conceived, not as convenience, but as care. Next, we will explore a side dish preserved in cool cellars, a forgotten recipe that relied on patience rather than baking to nourish American families. Before refrigeration became common, Americans relied on preservation to keep food edible between harvest and mealtime. One overlooked side dish that emerged from this necessity was pickled beets, a staple in early 1900s lunch tables. Unlike modern condiments, these were not mere flavor enhancers. They were a reliable source of nutrition, color, and tang, designed to complement meat, bread, or a simple bowl of soup. Pickled beets were prepared in fall, after harvest, when fresh vegetables were abundant. The roots were boiled until tender, peeled, and sliced, then submerged in a mixture of vinegar, sugar, and spices. Common additions included cinnamon, cloves, or allspice, creating a balance of sweet and sour that could brighten even the most modest midday meal. The beets were stored in glass jars or crocks, often in cool cellars where they could last for weeks or months. This dish mattered because it extended the life of a simple root vegetable while contributing both taste and nutrition. For families on limited budgets, pickled beets transformed ordinary lunches into something appealing. They were not indulgent, yet they demonstrated care. A lunch prepared with pickled beets reflected attention to flavor, seasonality, and household resourcefulness. Children, farmhands, and clerks all became accustomed to their ruby-red sweetness, a small comfort amid the routine of daily life. Cookbooks and home manuals from the era emphasized precision and preservation, detailing methods that ensured safety and consistency. Unlike contemporary convenience foods, pickled beets demanded foresight and patience, rewarding effort with a side dish that could be served for weeks without spoiling. They were, in every sense, a product of their time. As industrialized foods began to dominate mid-century kitchens, pickled beets gradually disappeared from lunch tables. Yet they reveal how early Americans valued preservation, taste, and practicality over novelty. Next, we will journey to a dish baked in modest ovens, a hearty preparation that filled plates with both warmth and nostalgia. In early 20th century American kitchens, potato pudding quietly earned a place beside meat, bread, and vegetables. This side dish was neither extravagant nor celebrated, yet it demonstrated a careful balance of economy, taste, and sustenance. For families managing limited resources, potato pudding transformed humble ingredients into a warm, filling complement to midday meals. Potato pudding began with boiled potatoes, mashed until smooth. Milk, butter, and a touch of sugar were added to create a creamy texture. Some recipes called for eggs or a sprinkling of nutmeg for subtle flavor. The mixture was poured into a baking dish and baked until a light crust formed on top, while the interior remained soft. The result was a comforting, spoonable dish that could accompany cold meats, roasted poultry, or beans. The significance of potato pudding extended beyond its flavor. Potatoes were inexpensive, widely available, and filling. By combining them with pantry staples, cooks created a dish that could feed a family without waste. Every portion represented careful planning, turning surplus potatoes or leftover mash into something entirely new. Unlike modern convenience foods, potato pudding required attention to texture, timing, and baking, skills that connected home cooks to generations before them. Cookbooks from the early 1900s treated potato pudding as an everyday side, expecting readers to recognize its value immediately. It was practical, nourishing, and quietly versatile, reflecting the period's approach to lunch, functional, satisfying, and consistent. It was a dish that carried both history and memory, quietly sustaining children returning from school and laborers finishing long shifts. Over time, potato pudding vanished from mainstream tables, replaced by faster, simpler alternatives. Yet recalling it reminds us that American side dishes once carried stories of resourcefulness, comfort, and care. Next, we will explore a dish preserved not by baking but by cold storage, a forgotten vegetable preparation that brought flavor and nutrition to lunch tables across early 20th century America. In an era before widespread refrigeration, creamed peas stood as a symbol of ingenuity on the American lunch table. This side dish transformed a simple garden vegetable into something both nourishing and comforting, a testament to the way early 20th century cooks maximized flavor and nutrition from limited ingredients. It was a dish quietly present in homes, schools, and small factories, offering color, richness, and sustenance without extravagance. Creamed peas were prepared by first boiling fresh or shelled peas until tender. A simple white sauce, made from butter, flour, and milk, was gently combined with the peas, creating a creamy consistency that clung to each green sphere. Some recipes added a pinch of sugar or a touch of salt to balance flavor, while others suggested finishing with a light sprinkle of paprika for warmth and color. The dish was served immediately or kept warm until the midday meal, pairing naturally with roasted meats, bread, or potatoes. This side dish mattered because peas were widely available and inexpensive. They could be grown in home gardens or purchased at local markets, making creamed peas accessible to households of nearly every income level. Beyond affordability, the dish carried nutritional value, providing vitamins and protein in a form that was easy to digest and appealing to children and adults alike. It reflected a time when cooks prioritized health, economy, and taste equally. Cookbooks from the early 1900s included creamed peas in lunch sections without fanfare, assuming that readers would recognize its reliability and versatility. It was a humble dish, yet it brought warmth and satisfaction to countless families. As decades passed, dishes like creamed peas gradually disappeared from the lunch table, replaced by quicker, less thoughtful preparations. Yet remembering them preserves a vision of American meals where care, patience, and flavor were inseparable. Next, we will turn to a hearty, oven-baked side that combined both grains and vegetables, a dish designed to fill stomachs and carry memories of home-cooked lunches long past. At the turn of the 20th century, rice pudding with savory herbs quietly found its way onto American lunch tables. Unlike the sweet, dessert-like versions familiar today, this preparation was practical, nourishing, and reflective of everyday home cooking. It transformed plain rice into a side dish that complemented meats and vegetables, proving that even the simplest grains could carry flavor, texture, and sustenance. Rice pudding began with rice boiled until soft, often in milk or a light broth. Butter and a small amount of cheese could be added for richness, while herbs such as parsley or thyme provided subtle flavor. Some recipes called for eggs to bind the mixture, producing a custard-like consistency that could be sliced or served spoonable. Once baked or gently cooked on the stovetop, the pudding offered a warm, creamy side that contrasted with firmer main dishes like roasted meats or pan-fried fish. This dish mattered because rice was affordable, filling, and widely available. For families managing limited resources, rice pudding stretched small portions of ingredients into something hearty and satisfying. It reflected a time when lunches were carefully composed. Each side was chosen not only for taste but also for its ability to nourish and sustain. Cookbooks from the early 1900s included recipes for rice pudding as a staple, expecting readers to appreciate its economy and versatility. Rice pudding also highlighted the ingenuity of home cooks. By adding herbs and subtle seasonings, a simple grain became more than filler. It became a dish that carried care and flavor to every meal. It represented a rhythm of cooking in which patience and attentiveness mattered as much as ingredients themselves. As American kitchens modernized, rice pudding with savory herbs fell out of favor, replaced by faster or sweeter alternatives. Yet recalling it offers insight into a time when every side dish had purpose, warmth, and history. Next, we will explore a vegetable-based preparation stored in cool cellars, a side dish that delivered flavor and longevity to American lunches of the early 20th century. In early 20th century American homes, braised cabbage with onions was an unassuming but essential side dish. It rarely earned attention in cookbooks beyond brief mentions, yet it was a dependable component of the everyday lunch. Families relied on its simplicity, affordability, and the way it complemented meat, potatoes, or grains, turning basic ingredients into a satisfying plate. Braised cabbage began with coarse slices of fresh cabbage, sautéed lightly in butter or drippings from meat. Onions were often added to deepen flavor, sometimes with a pinch of salt or a touch of sugar to balance the natural bitterness. The mixture was cooked slowly over low heat, allowing the cabbage to soften while retaining its body and slight sweetness. Some recipes suggested covering the pan to steam the cabbage gently, creating a tender, fragrant side that could be served warm or at room temperature. The significance of braised cabbage extended beyond taste. Cabbage was inexpensive, widely cultivated, and easy to store in root cellars during cooler months. It provided bulk and nutrition, including vitamins that were often scarce in winter diets. This dish embodied the early American approach to lunches: practical, nourishing, and composed with intention. Home cooks knew that a plate without a proper side could feel incomplete, and braised cabbage reliably filled that role. Cookbooks of the era expected readers to understand the dish's purpose immediately. There was no need for elaborate instructions because the method was familiar in most kitchens. Braised cabbage was about routine, care, and subtle flavor, not spectacle. Its presence at the table quietly reflected the rhythm of daily life, bridging the gap between necessity and enjoyment. Over time, simpler, faster vegetables and canned alternatives displaced dishes like braised cabbage. Yet remembering it allows us to see how early Americans approached lunch. Every side dish carried history, function, and thoughtfulness. Next, we will turn to a baked root vegetable dish, one that transformed modest ingredients into a warm, comforting part of the American midday meal. Among early 20th century American side dishes, baked turnips with cream held a quiet, steady place on lunch tables. This humble preparation transformed a simple root vegetable into a warm, nourishing dish, reflecting the resourcefulness of home cooks who relied on what was available in pantries and gardens. While often overlooked today, baked turnips were once valued for their ability to add both substance and comfort to the midday meal. The dish began with peeled and sliced turnips, sometimes cut into thin rounds or small cubes. These were layered in a shallow baking dish, then coated with a light cream or milk mixture. Butter and a pinch of salt enhanced flavor, while some recipes suggested a touch of sugar or nutmeg to balance the earthiness of the root. The turnips were baked slowly, allowing them to soften while the cream thickened into a gentle, custard-like consistency. The top browned lightly, creating a pleasing contrast to the tender interior. Baked turnips were more than a simple side. They were economical, using a vegetable that was widely available, hardy in storage, and inexpensive to purchase or grow. For families, this dish exemplified the early American approach to lunch: thoughtful, nourishing, and unpretentious. It required care in preparation but rewarded patience with flavor and texture that complemented a variety of main dishes, from roasted meats to leftover stews. Cookbooks from the 1900s included baked turnips without fanfare, assuming that every reader understood their value. The dish embodied a balance of economy, taste, and domestic skill, quietly reinforcing the idea that even modest ingredients could produce something comforting and sustaining. As lunches modernized and convenience foods became common, baked turnips gradually disappeared from daily tables. Yet revisiting them reminds us how early Americans combined practicality and care, creating meals where every side dish carried meaning, warmth, and history. Next, we will explore a vibrant, preserved vegetable side, one that brought color and flavor to lunch tables long before refrigeration became widespread. Long before refrigeration was common, Americans relied on preservation to extend the life of vegetables, and pickled green beans were a favorite for early 20th century lunches. This simple side dish combined practicality with flavor, transforming ordinary beans into a tangy, crisp accompaniment that could brighten any midday meal. While now nearly forgotten, it once held an important place on tables from small-town homes to bustling city apartments. Pickled green beans were prepared by first blanching fresh beans until just tender. They were then packed tightly into glass jars and covered with a hot vinegar brine, often flavored with garlic, mustard seed, peppercorns, or dill. The beans were pressed below the surface of the liquid and sealed, either for immediate use or storage in a cool cellar. Over days or weeks, the vinegar infused the beans, creating a dish that was crisp, tart, and slightly sweet depending on the recipe. This side dish mattered because it offered both nutrition and convenience. Beans were inexpensive, widely cultivated, and full of vitamins. Preserving them extended their availability far beyond the growing season, allowing families to serve a vegetable side even in winter. Pickled green beans also added color and contrast to meals that could otherwise be monochrome, making simple lunches more appealing to children and adults alike. Cookbooks from the early 1900s included pickled beans in sections on preserved vegetables, assuming readers understood their importance. They required no special skill beyond careful packing and attention to hygiene, yet they delivered flavor, texture, and practicality that modern processed foods could not replicate. As mid-century kitchens embraced convenience, pickled green beans slowly disappeared from lunch plates. Yet remembering them offers insight into a time when care, patience, and resourcefulness defined American side dishes. Next, we will turn to a baked dish combining potatoes and onions, a hearty preparation that filled plates and provided warmth and comfort to everyday lunches of the early 20th century. In early 20th century American kitchens, potato and onion gratin was a reliable side dish that quietly supported every lunch. This preparation transformed simple, inexpensive ingredients into a warm, filling accompaniment, reflecting a time when care, patience, and economy were central to home cooking. While modern cooks often overlook it, this dish once appeared regularly in lunch menus, especially in households where meals were meant to sustain long workdays. Potato and onion gratin began with thinly sliced potatoes layered in a buttered baking dish. Onions, sliced equally thin, were interspersed between the potato layers. A light mixture of milk or cream was poured over the top, sometimes with a small amount of butter or a pinch of salt to enhance flavor. In some recipes, breadcrumbs were sprinkled on top to create a browned, slightly crisp crust. The dish was baked slowly until the potatoes were tender and the top golden, resulting in a creamy, flavorful side that paired naturally with roasted meats, poultry, or simple beans. The significance of this gratin lay in its combination of accessibility and sustenance. Potatoes were inexpensive, easy to store, and filling, while onions provided flavor, nutrition, and aroma. The dish exemplified the early American approach to lunch: practical, hearty, and carefully prepared, requiring attention but rewarding patience. It allowed home cooks to turn modest ingredients into a dish that brought comfort and warmth to the table. Cookbooks of the era expected readers to recognize its value immediately, providing instructions without embellishment. Potato and onion gratin was not meant to impress but to satisfy, nourish, and complement the main course, reflecting the priorities of everyday American meals. As convenience foods and faster preparations became common, gratins like this gradually disappeared from daily menus. Yet remembering them highlights a period when lunches were composed thoughtfully, each side dish carrying history, care, and quiet significance. Next, we will conclude our exploration with one final forgotten side dish, a recipe that brought both color and flavor to early 20th century American tables. On early 20th century American lunch tables, creamed carrots with a touch of sugar offered both color and subtle sweetness, completing the lineup of dependable side dishes. Unlike the heavily seasoned or modernized versions we see today, this preparation was simple, practical, and designed to complement the main course rather than overshadow it. Its presence on the table reflected the care and thoughtfulness that home cooks invested in every meal. The dish began with fresh carrots, peeled and sliced evenly. They were boiled or steamed until tender, then combined with a light cream or milk sauce. Butter added richness, while a small amount of sugar enhanced the natural sweetness of the carrots. Some recipes suggested a pinch of salt or a dash of nutmeg to balance flavors, creating a subtle yet pleasing taste. The mixture was heated gently until the sauce thickened and coated the carrots, resulting in a dish that was smooth, creamy, and visually appealing. Creamed carrots mattered because they provided both nutrition and visual contrast. Carrots were inexpensive, easy to grow or purchase, and rich in vitamins, making them an ideal addition to everyday lunches. The light sweetness and creamy texture made them appealing to children and adults alike, while the simplicity of preparation allowed home cooks to serve a reliable, nourishing side without excessive effort. Cookbooks from the early 1900s included creamed carrots among other standard sides, assuming readers understood their role in balancing a meal. They required care and attention, but no special skill, embodying the values of thrift, patience, and sustenance that defined American lunches of the period. As kitchens modernized and convenience foods rose in popularity, dishes like creamed carrots gradually disappeared from daily tables. Yet remembering them preserves a glimpse of a time when every side dish carried purpose, flavor, and a quiet sense of home. This concludes our journey through 10 forgotten American side dishes. Each one tells a story of practicality, care, and flavor, reminders of a lunch table that was once thoughtfully composed and richly sustaining. These 10 side dishes remind us that American lunches were once more than just meals. They were carefully composed acts of care, flavor, and resourcefulness. Each recipe tells a story of households stretching ingredients, preserving produce, and nourishing families with patience and love. Though many of these dishes have faded from memory, they shaped the way Americans ate and remembered their meals. If you enjoyed uncovering these forgotten flavors, make sure to subscribe and join our journey through America's culinary past. There are countless recipes waiting to be rediscovered, each carrying history on every plate.